This is our last networking group. Nope, we have social justice. If you're not signed up for that one next Wednesday, we'd love to have you at that one. And then next Thursday is also the annual business meeting, where we would love to have your participation to hear a little more about the strategic framework that our committee's been working on all year and rolling that out. So anyways, but without further complications or anything along those lines, I'm going to turn it over to Susan Hallett and to Caroline Nowry, our very capable networking group co-chairs, and let them get started. So thank you all again for your hard work in pulling this together.
Thank you so much, Patty, and hello, everybody. It's so great to see all of you this afternoon. I'm excited about our session today. We, I think, are all very aware that right now the current housing climate offers a host of challenges that we're all addressing in our community in a variety of ways. And we sent a survey out last month to network group participants to learn about what was taking place in your communities, new, interesting, and innovative initiatives that you are working on to address the issues of affordable housing in your community. And we were really thrilled with the robust response we got. There's some really interesting things taking place across the state. And so today we are going to hear about some of those interesting activities. And I think you'll get a really diverse and interesting representation of philanthropic activities that your colleagues are working on across the state. The way that our format is going to work today is that we've got 7 folks who are going to share specific initiatives and activities that are happening in their communities. They're going to share for about 5 minutes, and then we'll have a couple of minutes for direct questions about what they've shared. And then hopefully the plan is that by the time all of our folks have shared, we'll have some time at the end of our session today for others to share what's going on in their own communities, for additional questions and additional discussion. So that's our plan today. And we really welcome your participation and your questions in this discussion. It's going to be, I think, again, really a rich conversation, great opportunity to hear about different things that are taking place. So to kick us off, we are going to start with Linda Rice, who is at the Hampton Roads Community Foundation. Linda is going to be talking a little bit about an affordable housing event that the Community Foundation held earlier in November. So Linda, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, well, I will tell you all 2 to 3 minutes grew to 5. So I might stay with 2 to 3 minutes if you all don't.
That's fine too, Linda.
But, I wanted to let you all know that I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm happy that our foundation is stepping a toe in the waters of this issue in our community. We did hold an event on November the 9th. There is a web page on our website that's very easy for you to find. Just search affordable housing and it'll be right there. The website has a recording of the event that's on YouTube also. There's a blog that summarizes the entire event, and the bios for our speakers are there. We were very fortunate to have Jonathan Knopf from Housing Forward Virginia, Andy Friedman, who was with the Virginia Beach Department of Housing for over 30 years, Sharnita Berthay, who is from the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, and Steve Lawson, who is a local builder who has built significant numbers of affordable housing units to join us. So I hope that you'll take the opportunity to listen to the 1 hour. You can fast forward past my introduction, and it's about 1 hour of the recording. And I will try to put the webpage in the chat, but I may not have the skill set to do that. So if I don't, it's very easy to find on our website. I will share with you one thing when you look at the slides and when you listen to the presentation, you'll see pictures of affordable housing units. And we realized as we were putting the event together that everybody has a picture in their head of what an affordable housing unit looks like. And for us, because there's been so much press on what's going on in public housing in Norfolk, many of us, when we talk about affordable housing, have a picture of public housing. But if you look at the pictures that Jonathan shows in his slide presentation, the houses are beautiful. Habitat for Humanity built a whole block of homes in Suffolk. Steve Lawson has built this incredible rental unit complex, apartments at the beachfront that all of us would love to live in because we could overlook the view of the water. So it's just gorgeous to see what is defined as affordable housing. At the end of the event, there were some things that all of us that were involved in the event is thought were important. And one is to tell your elected officials that housing is important for everyone. That was stressed over and over and over by our speakers. Our elected officials need to hear from you. What we heard over and over from our speakers is people often say NIMBY and they go to city council meetings to resist a complex, but in this case, we need people to go and support any initiatives. If you can't do anything else, in the advocacy area, you can support a local nonprofit that includes housing of individuals and families. And everybody that was a panelist and a speaker said, stay informed, stay up to date on this topic. Now, what are we doing at the foundation? We're looking for our next steps. I have talked to each of our speakers and talking to people in our community to find out who's doing what. We want to make sure that we don't tread in other work that's being done, but maybe we can come along and partner with that work. So that's what I'm doing right now, is researching what's going on in our area and finding what our next step will be.
Thank you. Linda, will you tell us a little bit about who the audience was for your event?
Well, we invited all of our donors. We invited builders. It was a varied group of individuals, but it was a public event. Everyone was invited. Our nonprofits were invited. Our nonprofits invited their board members. So we have had 319 views of that event so far. It's been very, very good.
Linda, thank you so much for joining us. We're grateful for your insight and the update. Please keep us posted on how you decide to move forward. Our next speaker this afternoon is Yvette Roots with Wells Fargo Foundation. Yvette is going to be talking about the very exciting Worth Initiative, which aims to help create 5,000 new BIPOC homeowners in Virginia by the end of 2025.
Yes. Hi, how are you all?
Hi, Yvette.
The Worth Initiative was actually established about a year ago. I've only been at Wells Fargo a year, and so keep that in mind. They were doing some work on this great initiative prior to my arrival. And essentially, Wells Fargo is trying to figure out how to create 5,000 Black and Brown homeowners by the year 2025. They wanted to do that in not just one, but in 8 different regions. And so they were trying to really create a total of 40,000 homeowners. And so they sent out essentially an RFP to a lot of the nonprofits to ask them whether they could put together a plan. They did. Some of the plans were actually funded. And as a result of that, once the plan was actually put together and established, then they had to actually go for, they had to actually go for funding after the plan was actually established. And so we were very fortunate here in the Richmond region, because Richmond was one of the plans that was actually funded. It was headed by LISC. And so we have LISC and several nonprofit collaborators that came together to put together a really nice, comprehensive housing plan. The plan is actually going to target from Richmond down to the Petersburg area. Essentially, what they're going to be focusing on first is actually getting folks ready for home ownership. A lot of times what we find is we have sometimes we have housing and then we don't have people that are actually ready to go into the housing. Well, we want to make sure that people have been educated, that they have actually eliminated barriers that may be in their way, in order to actually obtain financing. And so all of that good work is actually going to be going on through home buyers clubs and things of that nature. Again, several organizations are going to be working together in order to make this happen. Southside Community Development, I'm going to give you a list of all of the nonprofits that are going to be working on this. But essentially, what they want to do is they want to actually get folks ready first. And then once they get ready, then they're actually going to start to look at development, because development is going to be, as you know, sticks and bricks is probably going to be the most expensive and the toughest part. But what we believe is if we try to make sure folks are ready, then we can actually work up on the sticks and bricks end. And so, um, again, it's going to be a multi-year grant. It's going to be, we're going to extend this until 2025, and we're going to try to figure out exactly how we do this. So it's going to be a really good opportunity for us to look at home ownership and also be very heavily invested in home ownership. But we're also going to be looking at what we believe are policies and trends and things that sometimes prevent home ownership from happening, whether it's from um, an FHA standpoint or whether it's from, just a local um, uh, policy standpoint when it comes to, like, barriers and things of that nature. The organizations that are going to be participating in this will consist of, like I mentioned, LISC. They are going to be the lead grantee. We have Better Housing Coalition, Southside Community Development and Housing Authority located across the river, Virginia Housing, Home, Housing Opportunities Made Equal, the Richmond Association of Realtors, Partnership for Housing Affordability, the Creative Planning District down in the south side of Virginia, Plan RVA, Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority, and the Amanla Fund. And so, from what I understand, there are other organizations that are also interested. I think Habitat met with us on yesterday as well, because obviously their goal is for home ownership as well. And so it's going to be a very, very collaborative team, very collaborative operation, and we look forward to trying to get this work done.
Thank you, Yvette. And
You're welcome.
I know that you're well, I don't know, but I'm curious. Are you looking for other funders to come alongside Wells Fargo in this effort and help support the Worth initiative?
We never turn down money, of course. A part of the actual plan is for the actual LISC team, and I call them the RVA collaborative. So you will hear me say that a lot. So a part of the collaborative's goal is to also leverage the funding that Wells Fargo has actually provided. And so, yeah, so the answer to your question is yes. Okay.
Great.
And the person that you would probably want to talk to regarding that is going to be Jane Farrar.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, let's turn now to Dan Lehman, who is with the Community Foundation of Central Blue Ridge, talking about an upcoming housing summit as well as a community housing fund. Dan, take it away.
Thank you. And first, I need to say hello to Mary Areawood, who's on the call, because she was part of this effort before she switched. So hello, Mary. So our interest in shifting our strategic work to addressing housing instability is really an outgrowth of the work that we were doing during the pandemic. And the nugget of that really began with some work that we were doing in conjunction with folks at Augusta Health, our region's healthcare provider, and others. And once we got through a certain phase of that work, that group began to shift its attention to what can we do on this front in terms of housing. And as we began moving in that direction, we began to also see a lot of interest throughout the community developing in these different little pockets of collaboration beginning, and realized that, one, we need to get everyone on the same page, but we also need to be thinking through cause and effect, where investments need to be made first, and to have everyone working together on that and knowing what their roles are. So the idea for working towards a housing summit developed out of those conversations, and it's now advanced to the point where we've identified a partner out of Boston, the Technical Assistance Collaborative, that can assist us with that planning and the facilitation of that summit, and also making sure that we have everybody who needs to be at that table present for that. And then to also design that summit in such a way that we would not fail to come out of that without some clear next steps that we can take action on. So we're excited about that. That will be coming up in 2023, most likely probably mid-year. But in advance of that, we still have a lot of work that we can be doing. And one of the things that we realized is that we need to bring the general public along with us. And so thanks to a grant that we received from the Virginia Department of Health, we engaged with a local and very talented photographer who worked with our director of community engagement to begin meeting the people in the community who are experiencing housing insecurity. And with their permission, putting together an exhibit of portraits. And we unveiled that just coincidentally, Linda, on November 9th at our anniversary event. And we used the reception time during that event to unveil that exhibit for the first time. And now it resides on our website. And I'll drop the link into the chat so that everyone has that. And that's a platform we'll begin to build off of to continue to tell these stories, begin adding action or more information, statistics, and also begin addressing the question, what's next? What if I'm interested in this, what can I do? And so that website will continue to evolve, but we're also going to be using that exhibit throughout the community. You're going to see it in coffee shops and museums, any place we can get them with the QR code so that people can easily get to the website. You'll find it there. So we're excited about that piece of it. I think it's a portal for engaging the community in general and getting buy-in for making these investments. And then it also coincided with receiving the largest gift in our history, which thankfully was an unrestricted gift of $4 million that we'll be having some conversations around using that to seed the development of a new housing fund. And that fund can serve many purposes and also be a place where if people want to be part of the solutions that come out of the summit, we'll have a place to make contributions. We know we will need far more than that to address this issue over time, but at least that will have some place to begin.
Thanks so much, Dan. I love your progression of thought there. It's amazing to be able to engage community first and foremost, and then begin to bring folks together for a solution-driven conversation and have the fund as a catalyst to get some of those solutions going in the community. It's really exciting work. Our next speaker is Kira Cook, and Kira is with the Williamsburg Health Foundation and is going to be talking about eviction prevention. Kira, take it away.
Thanks, Susan. And I wanted to say I was at the Governor's Housing Conference and it was awesome. It was really a great place to connect and talk about ideas, and saw Sherry there, so that was good. So we're basically, our corpus is around 130 million. We serve Williamsburg, James City County and York County, and we give about $5 million on average out in the community. Typically about $3.5 million of that is towards safety net healthcare. So we're really decidedly still in the healthcare realm, but about 5 years ago, we decided to get into advocacy and a little bit more upstream. And so our first venture into advocacy was the topic of housing, because we knew it was so critically important in our community. And we started with research. So we hired Housing Virginia, Bob Adams and Jonathan Knopf to do a study for us, which is available on our website, and I'll drop the link into the chat. And they connected housing to health and really demonstrated that our local level of effort, particularly in Williamsburg and James City County, was very low compared to other localities in Virginia. We sort of intentionally kept out affordable housing, and the data didn't lie. And so that was a really key point for us to be able to demonstrate. Meanwhile, our local governments had done housing studies in partnership with Virginia Tech and William and Mary professors, but they kept it on the shelf. It was really kind of politically scary for them. Sorry about the phone ringing. We have a new system and I don't know how to mute it. Just got it 2 days ago. Sorry. So anyway, we, to give our local government sort of cover, we had a housing symposium. And so we launched our study, and they were then able to launch their study at the same time. And it was facilitated by the former city manager of the city of Williamsburg, who was on our board. So it was a really convenient way to bring in local governments in a way that gave them political cover to talk about this in a pretty raw way. And then after that, so again, this is about 5 years ago, then we started working with them on the development of their comprehensive plans. So that started our advocacy work. Then that was going swimmingly, and then the pandemic hit, and we had gotten our board used to the idea of housing. Really sorry about that. I wish I knew how to. Then we got our board really used to the idea of housing, and the pandemic hit. And so after we did a lot of research that was all over the place, we considered buying defunct hotel properties and depressed prices. We discussed a lot of ideas. We decided to put $1 million in eviction prevention with our local governments. And then, of course, Virginia was a stellar partner in eviction prevention, one of the shining stars in the country. So all of this money came, and it turns out our $1 million wasn't needed. So of the $1 million, $800,000 got returned. And there were very few, if any, evictions in our community. And the reason we know that is because what our money incented was the local governments working with the landlords to call them first. So even now that eviction prevention dollars are no longer falling from the sky, our landlords have relationships with our local DSS departments. And so anytime a landlord is about to evict, their first call is to DSS, and then DSS brings local philanthropic dollars to bear, because we have a fairly generous community through our community foundation and other partners, so our faith community, etc. So that now, having returned $800,000, our board now has challenged us to figure out what next. What are you going to do next? So we know we don't want to do provision of homelessness services. We know we don't want to do rapid rehousing. We know we don't want to do locally funded vouchers. We know we don't want to do rehab, and we know we don't want to do home ownership. Not because those programs are bad, but we know that there are other streams in our community that are already working on that. They're already in that space. So we're going to continue to work on advocacy. We want to impact invest to create new rental product, affordable rental product. And we also want to continue to work with those relationships with the eviction, with the landlords, because we know that as landlords turn over apartment complex staff and as social service staff switches, that those relationships will eventually evaporate. So we want to provide funding, and we're working on that over the next year. We anticipate working with local DSS offices and nonprofits to strengthen those and allow those relationships with the landlords to persist. So that's sort of our short-term, long-term goal, to kind of facilitate eviction prevention, and probably provide a tranche of money that will allow people to dip into that should there be couple months rent, a car repair, so that, I can't remember who said earlier, cover those, an illness or a temporary layoff or a car repair or something like that. So that's where we're leading right now, and I expect to be able to do something like that within the next year, recommended to our board. So that's like the last 5 years in a nutshell.
Kira, it's really exciting to think about that the Williamsburg Health Foundation is still dug into this issue, because I think what we're going to see as public funds have started to go away, the need for private investment, private dollars to invest in this effort and really build on those relationships that were built between landlords and nonprofit providers and local governments continue. So I'm thrilled to hear that you guys are staying so deeply engaged. Other questions for Kira?
Yeah, I got a question. I really like that relationship that you described, or that communication channel between landlords and DSS. And I think you answered this question, but does that call take place before an eviction notice is ever issued?
Absolutely. In fact, our DSS offices have gotten in the habit now of monthly touching base with all the landlords, asking them, what are you seeing? Any concerns, any worries that you have? Let us get engaged now. And it's really taken away any stigma between the landlord and the renter, and it's positioned more as this community cares about you and wants you to stay in your home. And so we want to support you in staying stably housed. And so, as opposed to getting to the point of embarrassment and shame, so if someone is 5-10 days late, well before an eviction process would start, they're made aware of the opportunity to tap into local services. So, and we don't want that to evaporate, because we know turnover will eventually lose that. So.
And does that extend to hotel owners, where there may be residents who are, their temporary living is in a hotel?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because it's not legal to stay in a hotel for more than 30 days, but people do it, but we pretend that we don't know that they do it. And so it's a really interesting tap dance there. So that's sort of a don't ask, don't tell situation, Dan. So I really can't answer that. I know that the DSS offices are in constant contact with the as our local law enforcement as well. But how that works with those landlords, I don't know. Although we are in the process of, through our comprehensive planning ordinances, allowing motels to convert to affordable housing with some support from local government. And so the people who are, because we, as a tourism economy, we do have a lot of motels that serve that purpose, but those numbers are dwindling as they convert to efficiency. And yeah, I'll share that as soon as I put on mute. Share the link.
Natalia, artist with Atlantic Union Bank, is going to be talking about some of the work they're doing around down payment assistance.
Thank you so much. So we have been trying to develop something that banks call special purpose credit program, which is a special type of product in the home lending space that is specifically designated to low to moderate income individuals. And we came up with a good partnership with the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta, where we have up to 100% financing, lower credit score, and down payment assistance when you have a lower credit score than what we already said, of up to $10,000. So we've been able, with that program this year, to generate over 113 loans throughout Virginia that had that down payment assistance. And we're looking how we can implement this into 2023 when we have even less inventory. But we have been very successful, and I think that banks can be very competitive, but I'm very open to sharing with other financial institutions how we came up with this program and how we track the success to be able to share. Our next step, again, is doing more of that partnership with public-private institutions, including anchor institutions, on understanding the community needs, the housing community needs to apply, because our program is strictly focused on home ownership. And we know that there is a gap in rental housing as well, and how we can be more impactful there. So I didn't have that much to share. 113 units is still a heck of a lot than we had before, which was 0. So we're really proud to share that.
No, that's great, Natalia. Thank you. I think you're so right about thinking about rental assistance and what that can look like. I think that's been a difficult nut to crack, affordable rental units, at least in this region, and I'm sure across the state as well. And so I appreciate that you're thinking both in the home ownership space and in the rental space as well. Questions for Natalia?
Hey, Natalia, it's Caroline. I have a question, and again, it's going back to what we're seeing in the economy, and how are the rising rates and inflation sort of affecting your target market for this program, and how are you adjusting your program, or do you foresee adjusting your program to sort of mitigate some of those risks that are there?
Great question. So we did see that the majority of those loans were made heavily in the second quarter of this year. Last quarter, we had less than half of the originations of the first 2 quarters of the year. So we do see the problem of lack of inventory, of still very competitive market. So we have some buyers that will put in a request for a house, but because there is down payment assistance, we have to approve the grant internally, so it takes a little longer. And then an investor can sweep the house much quicker with cash offer. So we have the inventory, we have the competition, and we have the rising interest rates. So one of the things that we've been thinking is taking a little bit of our money that we were putting on down payment assistance and shifting to buying down rates, so that we can still maintain that monthly payment for the mortgage affordable. We're still studying how this can look like, because we need to figure out like how much is this going to be from a philanthropic perspective. Do we put a certain amount, and where are we going to deploy these funds? So I don't have a right answer, but we're working on it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Natalia. Our next speaker is Ashley Xavier with the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Foundation, talking about connecting survivors and victims of violence with employment, education, and housing resources. Ashley.
Hi, how's everybody? I am Mary Arrowwood's coworker, so she gave a little plug earlier on the foundation. But my title here at the VHHA Foundation is HVIP Manager. And really what that means is I work with all of our hospital-based violence intervention program initiatives statewide. So this is probably going to be a little bit different of a conversation than what we've had up to this point, since I'm not doing anything directly with housing, but everything you guys have mentioned really impacts the patients that are HVIPs. So what is an HVIP? It's a hospital-based violence intervention program that combines the efforts of medical staff with specially trained intervention specialists to provide case management and trauma-informed care to violently injured patients. So what the intervention specialist does is that once a patient has been admitted, and sometimes in the emergency department, although that's a bit of a trickier place to meet patients, they will build rapport with the patient, get to know them, kind of help them understand what happened. Really, the goal is to reduce retaliation and re-injury. They connect the patient with education, training, employment, housing, other social services to ensure that they have the tools and resources they need to not be re-injured. Patients are enrolled for intensive case management for anywhere from 6 months to a year. It just really depends on the patient's needs and goals. And ideally, these intervention specialists come from the communities most impacted by violence. They know the lives that patients are leading. They know the challenges. They know some of the barriers that led them to being injured or how they could end up there. So they can really like connect with the patient and understand them and help them build new tools, new resources, get them on a plan to not be re-injured. And in 2019, the VHHA Foundation received their first grant from DCJS to start this collaborative. Because up until 2019, there was only one hospital-based violence intervention program in Virginia based at VCU called Bridging the Gap, and they were established in 2007. So with this new grant from DCJS, we've been able to build 8 hospital-based violence intervention programs across the state. DCGS has really been our biggest funder for these programs. That funding was reviewed by DCGS in 2021. Our current funding stream does end in June, but we have some feelers out there and a continuation grant submitted to get 2 more years of funding for our programs. But really, we have these 8 programs, 5 of which are focused on community violence, 3 on intimate partner or domestic sexual violence. Community violence is really defined as violence that happens between unrelated individuals who may or may not know each other. It's generally outside the home. Sometimes it can happen within, but very often they happen on the sidewalk, outside of community centers, corner stores, things like that. And our community violence programs are based at Virginia Hospital, VCU Health, Riverside Regional, Centera Norfolk, CHKD, and Carilion Clinic, really our state's major trauma centers, since that's where the most violently injured patients are going to end up. And then the 3 intimate partner violence programs, also at VCU, Bon Secours, and Chesapeake.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Any questions for Ashley? Thank you, Ashley. We really appreciate the good information. Before we open it up, I'd love Amy Owen. Amy, if you don't mind sharing as well. Amy also responded to our survey with some interesting work that the Community Foundation for Loudoun and Northern Fauquier are doing around workforce housing.
Well done on the pronunciation of one of our counties. It often snags us. Thanks for the opportunity. We are engaging in what we refer to as a community service campaign, just trying to build more awareness in the community about the need for increased density and workforce housing. We have deliberately used the phrase workforce housing, hoping that there might be sort of more of a moderate consensus built around that. It is a campaign that includes social media, print ads, letters to the editor by guest folks, including Katie Moore, will be the December, talking about philanthropy's role in affordable and workforce housing. Ultimately, the hope is that we both provide some measure of political cover for our elected officials to feel confident that when they're approving new zoning that's going on here in Loudoun County, and different initiatives and projects that include affordable dwelling units, that they are in good standing. We did launch the campaign with a public opinion poll. We hired a third-party group to do a poll across the county that was equally weighted in geography, ethnicity, and political standing. And it showed that 78% of those responding agreed that if you work in Loudoun, you should be able to live in Loudoun. And so that's a phrase we're trying to make hay with quite a bit. And it's been kind of interesting. We have gotten a little bit of pushback from some of our elected officials. We hope we can sustain the campaign through the next election cycle. Our Board of Supervisors will be part of that cycle next November. So that's sort of what we'll probably do a little bit of coasting through summer and then pour it back on next fall. So that's sort of our attempt. I will say we have done a number of community service campaigns before, and because of that, we were able to ramp this up pretty quickly. But I've never been quite so henpecked as I have with a campaign. I mean, you guys know how incredibly complex this issue is, but many of our supporters and partners and donors is saying you gotta drill down on accessory dwelling units, or you need to drill down on segment 7A of the zoning policy. And I keep saying we're not designed for that. We're just trying to elevate community involvement and awareness of the issue. But it's been hard to hear so many of our supporters give us very specific direction and have to sort of defend our stand.
Yeah, it's really amazing, Amy, how this issue creates such tension and challenge among folks. All right. Well, I always love it when we're ending a session with connections being made. Um, that means this was a success. So to all of our speakers, thank you so much for spending time and sharing the information with us today. I think it's one of the most valuable things that we can offer with VFN is just a way to understand what others are working on and connect and share ideas. So I'm grateful that we had so many folks who were willing to do that today. And also for the folks who joined us to listen and to ask questions and to pitch in as well. It's been a really valuable session. I have about 4 pages of notes that I look forward to digesting. So thank you so much, everybody.